Yes, I'm John Cook. What I'm going to do today is tell you a bit about who I am, why I've got here, my story, my thoughts on the future. Very similar to Mark's. So I'm fourth generation. I think that was my grandfather on my mother's side. That's my grandfather on my father's side. So you can see it's been in my genes for quite a long time. And that's me. Still old enough to remember. Thank you. Still old enough to remember milk churns. Can you see, Richard?
Yeah.
You sure? And obviously I've been treated badly all my life, as you can see. That's my sisters thinking I needed to be controlled. But my point of the pictures are I'm old enough to remember farming in its good period. That's my father there as well. So what am I going to talk about? I'm going to talk about raw milk, which is what I do, mostly. The health, why raw milk and the health of the cows, the health of us is very important. Food security, again, I'll probably be saying a lot of the same things that Mark's already said. The future of farming as I see it, and the new challenges. So, raw milk, what is it? I used to do these talks and I used to talk about raw milk and people actually somebody asked me, what is raw milk? Because I'm inside the woods, so I just know what raw milk is, but actually not everybody does. Well, raw milk is milk. Everything else is a pale alternative. It's straight from the cow. All I do is milk it, cool it, put it through a sieve, and I don't add anything, I don't take anything away. So as a food, it's perfect. So I'm also going to say that everything I say today is purely from my experience of being a farmer. I'm not going to say I'm a doctor. This is me having a fight with a slurry tanker. It won. So I say everything I'm going to say today is purely my opinions. So as I go through the talk, I've put pictures of the farm, and it reminds me to actually take a drink. Otherwise, I just completely run out of. I did bring some with me. So raw milk is not a new idea. It's been around for a very long time. They won't have you believe it. So what went wrong with raw milk? Well, what went wrong was during the industrial period, they took workers from the land, put them into industrial factories. Well, there was no milk in town, so instead of actually being able to transport the milk, because they couldn't because the refrigeration and the cleanliness wasn't quite up to it, they decided to take the cows into town, which was a good idea, but there's no grass in town. So they decided to feed the cows all the waste from the bakeries and the breweries, so it actually changed the cow. So when you start changing the pH of a stomach, you start changing the actual microbiome. So inadvertently, they actually made the cows sick. Well, sick cows make poor food. So like everything, it's always, they all say it's the cow, but actually it's the how. It's how it's produced. So they made the cows sick. They were blaming the cows for making everybody ill, where actually it was purely the system they were putting these cows under. In big barns, never saw the sunlight, fed inappropriate food. So they came up with pasteurization, which absolutely was brilliant at the time. It saved thousands and thousands of people. But they're still using that science today. They're still saying that raw milk is dangerous. And if you ask anybody, they will say at some point, yes, raw milk, oh yes, that'll kill you, won't it? Are you still allowed to do it? Can you actually do it? I have people turn up at the farm saying, but it's a really dangerous thing to do, isn't it? I'm like, and I said to one guy, I've got a really good business model. People turn up at the farm, they buy my milk, they get ill, and they never come back. It's a great business model. So we've been doing raw milk for 12,000 years, and it's only been the last 120, 130 years that it's been deemed bad. Well, we need to start thinking differently now. So that's worst, who's given us the tongue. So I'm still milking in a parlour that my father put in the 1960s. I put a roof on it because he was milking in the open air. Don't know why he did that. So I've modernised it a few times. It's gone through different things, but we're still using old kit. So the health benefits. I'm not going to read all this out because I'm going to run out of time because I always get lots of questions. And if anybody's got any questions as we go on, if you can just put your hand up and let me know, because I'm inside the wood and I can't always see what's outside. So if there's any question that you want answered, just put your hand up and I'll try and answer it quickly. So I tried to put it in to make it obvious because there's quite a lot of writing on these. So gut health. I have people come to me because they have gut issues. I was very naive when I started because we run a system where we keep the cows and calves together, and I thought that was a model that everybody was going to come for, and it was going to be the best thing. I was looking after the soil, I wasn't abusing the cows. So we did a survey on all of our customers and said, why do you come to us? Gut health. Selfish bastards were coming for their own reasons, not because of all the hard work I was doing. I was gutted. But then it made me realise, and I said to some of these people afterwards, I said, well, but what about all the other stuff I do? I said, that's just a bonus, just a bonus. There's always, and we're really pleased you're doing all that, but we can because we have gut health issues. Lactose intolerance, big one. Everybody goes, oh, and I'm allergic to milk. Well, raw milk has the enzymes in the milk to be able to digest it. So when you drink raw milk, your body goes, ah. If you drink pasteurized milk, it goes, what the hell is this shit? Because it doesn't recognise it as food. Raw milk, produced the way I produce it, is in its pure form. Everything is in right constituents, so the carbohydrates, the proteins, the vitamins, the minerals. IBS, my next door neighbour, incredible story. She was on 6 Imodium tablets a day maintenance dose just to get through life. I told her, drink our milk, it'll cure you. She said, I can't drink fat because it's one of my triggers. So I didn't want to be an arsehole, I just left it. And then she came up with a big rash on her neck. I said, it looked like lupus. I said, get some of our milk inside you, Val, it'll make you feel better. She went, no, I can't risk it. Anyway, unbeknownst to me, Sarah, my business partner, got hold of her and said, just have a cup in the morning and a cup at night, see what happens. So she did. And within a month of doing that, she was off all of her tablets. And she came into my milking parlour one morning, because she literally lives next door, walking her dog, and she went, John, I had onions last night. And I went, wow, that's really good, Val. She went, no. She said, I still got them. That was the thing, that she could eat whatever she wanted to, but it wouldn't be. So I completely changed. She actually said I saved her life. I've changed her life, I think. Immune system. Obviously we've all been through a recent period of immune suppression. The amount of people that come and say, I just don't get the colds anymore. I don't feel, I don't get ill. I'm not going to keep going through all this necessarily because I'm going to run out of time. But the basis is that milk or any food done under a low pressure system is going to be beneficial for your system. Bone density. One of the things, and I'm sure you'll probably do the same as me, I've never broken a bone. Oh God. I've never broken a bone. My sister's never broke a bone. When we go to the dentist, the first time I went to the dentist and he took an X-ray on my jaw when I was an adult, he said, oh my God, the density of your jaw. It's really dense. We can see how dense it is. Why should that be? And I said, well, probably because I drink good food, good milk. So this is basically what pasteurization does to milk. And, you can analyse whatever you like on the side of a tub and it says that vitamin C is in there, but if you can't get it out, there's no point bloody drinking it. Calcium being obviously the big one you think about for milk. Well, if you only get 20% of it out, it's not a great deal of point putting it in. I've already been through some of these. Lactose intolerant, obviously that's one of our big things is lactose intolerant. People think that they can't drink milk. They can drink milk. It's just that they're, I don't know how many centuries ago we had a mutation. I say centuries, probably millennia ago, we had a mutation which allowed us to drink pasteurised milk. We shouldn't be able to drink pasteurised milk. Dogs can't tolerate it. Most mammals, when they're adult, can't tolerate it. We are abnormal in that. So, say, don't feed milk to hedgehogs. Well, yeah, feed my milk if you want to, because they're going to be fine on it. A1, A2 protein, this is a big one. Who knows about A2 protein? Wow, yeah, not many of you. And I was exactly the same about 6 years ago, and I'm a bloody dairy farmer. So we've been breeding these cows for traits like milk yield and size, and like the black and white Holstein you will see in the field. It's a huge engine, as we call it, a huge belly, really skinny legs. So all of her energy goes into making milk. That's her primary function. Inadvertently, we've bred cows that produce A1 protein. Now A2 protein is slightly different. It's a beta-casein. So the old breeds like the Shorthorns, the Guernseys, the Jerseys, Brown Swiss tended to be more A2. Virtually everybody can digest A2. The symptoms are very similar to lactose intolerance. So you're going to get phlegm and build-up and gut ache and wind. So people think they're lactose intolerant, but they're actually not. So when we started on, I had a customer come to me and said, have you got any A2 milk? I said, what's that? She said, well, and she explained it to me, which was really embarrassing. And she said, if I buy you an A2 cow, will you milk it for me? I didn't like the idea of that, so I just went out and bought 5 of my own, just genetically tested them, find out they were A2. So what I started to do is I milked the A2 cows first, bottled that separately for people that required it, and then I just put the rest of it in the tank for the general raw milk. So if somebody came to me and said, I'm lactose intolerant, I would say, well, you should be able to tolerate our milk, but let me know. And a few people come back saying, I still had the same symptoms of, very stiff gut, bad wind, all the rest of it. I said, okay, well, try this milk. And I gave them the A2 milk. Oh, perfect. Absolutely no problem at all. And I, just like most of you in here, had no idea about it. So people that think they're actually allergic to milk, it might just be the protein they're allergic to. Now, as an industry, that's rubbish that we don't know about it. I didn't know about it. Now, in all the breeding magazines, it does mention it. And we have been exclusively A2 now for 6-7 years, I think. So if anybody comes to me and says they can't tolerate my milk, they are genuinely allergic to milk. And I've only had 3 people in the whole time I've been doing it. I think one of them just thought it tasted like sick, so I didn't have it anyway. Asthma, another big one. We had a lady come out, she had a brown and a blue inhaler, and I don't know what the difference between the two is. She was taking both every day, I think, or certainly the blue one she took quite regularly. And she said that her doctor said she'd be on this for the rest of her life. Within a week, she was off both of them. She thought she was just going to have attack after attack after attack, and then within a week, she was off it. So asthma, eczema is the other one. We had a guy come to us. He had his face, when he smiled, he used to crack. He was like the Joker out of Batman. It was horrible to see, and he was, my age, young man, and he said that he'd heard somewhere on some forum somewhere that raw milk might be able to help him. Well, within a month, all of the sores had healed. He was still obviously very raw and pink, if you like, and he had a 10-year-old son which he brought along, and he said, "Show John your hands," and the palm of his hand was like the underside of a blister, that purple colour, both hands. I went, ooh, that looks bad. He went, no. He used to have to wear gloves at night, covered in whatever cream they used to put on, and we used to have to zip tie the gloves on because he would pull it off because he'd be ripping to get his hands were so bad. This kid could play again. This was the first time he'd had him playing in like two years because his hands were so sore. So asthma, eczema is an expression of gut health, and we're not told that when you go to the doctor. Just give you a pill, try this pill. They're not saying to you, if any doctor you go to doesn't say what are you eating to cause this problem, it just gives you a pill to try and sort it out, then you need another doctor. Allergies the same. Loads of different allergies can be helped. Bowel health. I had a guy come to me who was very excited about the whole process of starting the raw milk, and he was going to write a blog about it, which I thought was a bit dangerous, but he was going to write this blog anyway. And 3 weeks into it, he came to me and he was so excited, and he said, I've had a waxy poo. That's the first time I've had a waxy poo for years. And I think when you don't necessarily have that problem, I'm sure there's people in the room that does have a problem with digestion, you don't realise how important a waxy poo is to people and how little things can make such a huge difference. So again, it's helping change people's lives. Yeah, don't say that, they're little bastards. Rose, the one on that one, has a penchant for riding people. When she gets a bit horny, you need to be very careful if you hear clip, 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 and then she's up on top of you. And Glory, if you've got a treat in your pocket, won't leave you alone. When she was born, which was October last year, when I used to straw up all the tunnels that they live in, I used to let the cows back in first, and she would run around like a dodgem car with her tail in the air, and she'd just do laps. And I said, we all need a bit of Glory in our life, because she just made life was for living. So why is raw milk safe on my system, and what can we do to make it safer? So like anything, if it's not under stress, it's not going to break, it's going to produce really good food. And it's the same with vegetables, it's the same with animals. So like Mark was saying about the nitram, just keep stressing it out with more chemicals, whereas you need to actually work in harmony with nature. So my emphasis is always on animal health. I will look after them first, any excess we get. Now, it's kind of commercial suicide to start with. Still is commercial suicide, but I'm trying to make it profitable. So one of the things I do is species-appropriate diet. And this kind of links into my story, which I'm going to go into very soon, but my cows just eat grass. They also have a very small amount of sugar beet, all the way from Mark's part of the world, just to get them into the milking parlour, because otherwise they're absolute idiots. And it's a sweetener, it's a bribe, get them in. But everything I feed them, they would naturally go out into the wild and eat. So if they found a sugar beet, they go and eat it. So regarding the safety of milk, we know so much about pathogen transfer, how to avoid build-up of bacteria in our systems. We're using really efficient cooling now. So whereas before they used to run it over an external washboard that had cold water running through it. Now my milk can come from very, 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 very warm, where it comes out at 38 degrees, and I can get it to about 4 degrees in less than a minute. You can't, if you do it too quick, you'll actually shock the milk, and it can change the consistency of it, and the enzymes don't like it very much. So I used to run it through 2 plate coolers, which are effectively like car radiators, but I turned one off because it was too quick and it was ruining the milk. We test regularly for milk. We test regularly for pathogens. They're bastards too. So this is what we test for regularly, and you can't see that, so I did that. So raw milk is inherently safe as long as the animals are well looked after and the plants looked after well. So this is the stuff we're testing for. So this is the test that the Food Standards Agency does. So you see what they're testing for. Now, when people say consider raw milk, they just think of raw milk from any dairy. Well, we're testing for this stuff. So if you went to the commercial dairy the commercial farm down the road, he's not going to be doing any of this testing. And it doesn't matter, because they cook and destroy the milk anyway. So his emphasis is on yield and fat and protein content. My emphasis is on the health of the milk. Because as a business model, as I explained earlier, you make one person ill, you haven't got much of a business. So we are very highly scrutinised and regulated. So trying to make the milk safer, we started an organisation called the Raw Milk Producers Association. It's an organisation that I helped start. We're trying to make anybody that wants to start raw milk be able to do it in a very safe way, because their reputation is our reputation. So if I make one person ill, every single raw milk producer in the country will be affected by that. If the Chinese restaurant down the road here makes somebody ill, nobody hears about it. It's not a headline. So we are disproportionately targeted, and it's very sad that it is that situation. And yes, people have died from raw milk, very, very, very few. More people have died from pasteurised milk, but you're not going to hear it because it's not making a very nice headline. And the dairy industry would squash it anyway. So we're actually in a declining number of milk producers making raw milk. When I started, there's about 180, there's about 136 now. That's not good. That's not good at all. And it's because of the paperwork. We're talking about legislation and imposing, and you're absolutely right, Mark. All I want to do is play with teats, and I don't want to get in the office, I'm good with teats. I'm not good with paperwork. So we set up the Raw Milk Producers Association as a source for people to start, basically. So when I started, there was no collective hub of information. We just had to try and find it all out from all the different places. And we've done this to make sure we have a slight amount of control over it, but it's an information hub. So if anybody wants to start doing it, then they can just come join. It's 100 quid a year. It's not very much money. And they can get all the information they need and help. And we have experts and experts on everything to be able to help guide you through. But one of the things we realised is one of the problems that I have is I am not allowed to say to you, I can cure your IBS, or I can help your eczema, or your asthma, or any allergies, because there's no peer-reviewed science, apparently. I can give you 200 anecdotal stories, that doesn't count. Apparently it has to be science peer-reviewed. And we all roll our eyes about that because it's absolute rubbish. We know it is, but we're still not allowed to say it. If we put on our websites, they are on the phone to us straight away. I couldn't even put the red tractor symbol on my website because the red food assurance didn't recognise raw milk. They didn't want anything to do with it. I used to supply Cadbury's, you're aware of Cadbury's, and even I had to take their signs down in case, because again, the public are pretty stupid. If I did accidentally make somebody ill, they would phone Cadbury's and say, your milk made me ill, because that's how stupid people are. I'm never, ever surprised. It's incredible. So what we're trying to do is fund some of this research. Now, what we've done, we set up a supporters club, which you can join, which the link is at the end. And if anybody wants to help, it's 20 quid a year, and you'll get regular updates of farmers and profiles and what we've been doing and any events that are going on. And it's a way for us to further and encourage more people to start, because there's so few of us and we just need to get it, because this is good food. And you can live on raw milk because it's so good. So, like I say, I'll have the links at the end. If you can spare 20 quid a year, like Mark was saying, you need to start actually actively inputting into where your food comes from. So yeah, that's Sunny. Now she is nice. She's lovely, isn't she? She's an absolute godsend. She doesn't look like that anymore, sadly.
So how many cows?
How many cows do I have? I've got about 74 milking cows. I am currently only milking into the tank 19, because the rest of them are either feeding calves or are dry, ready to calve. So my health transformation, this is the interesting bit. So one of my customers is called Ian Vout. He's a natural health coach, so he will try to make you fit and healthy by doing natural things rather than giving you any pills. So what we started, he'd been coming for me for years, and I was not in great shape, and he just kept on dropping a seed. Maybe we should do some blood tests on you, John. I said, oh, go on, then let's do it. Well, he did, and I was diabetic. I had very low vitamin D, which was a surprise because I was outside, but because I had skin cancer 26 years ago, and it wasn't serious skin cancer. Peaked cap, long sleeves, hide from the sun because it's so bad for you. Obviously, we know that's complete rubbish now. And I also had high ferritin, which who's heard of ferritin how many of you know how dangerous it is? Yes, exactly, Roger. Yeah, exactly. It's a man killer.
What is it?
It hardens your arteries, and you see these really fit millionaires running around doing marathons, eating organic food and the best food, and they drop down dead with a heart attack. And you go, well, I wasn't expecting that. There's no magic pill. There's no magic pill for ferritin, so it's not pushed at all. If you give blood, that's the best way to regulate it. I had skin cancer. They won't take my blood in blood service because I'm contaminated. So I have to pay £130 a pint to get rid of my blood. Yeah, I know. The doctors wouldn't. I went to the doctor, exactly, Christopher, that's exactly what I said. I went to the doctor and said, I've got high ferritin, it's nearly 780. He said, oh, we don't worry till it gets to 1,000. And my research showed it needs to be sub 100 millimoles per whatever it is. And he said, no, we don't worry till it gets to 1,000. I said, well, I don't want to be in your system. I want to stop. I want to reverse before I get there. He said, no, we won't do anything until you get to 1,000. So I just walked out and found my own way of doing it. So I was diabetic, quite diabetic. Unsurprising for the amount of sugar I used to eat. I used to eat every two hours. I would have 2 sugars in my tea. I would eat flapjack, shortbread, white bread, cakes, biscuits, and there was no off. And every 2 hours, I would plan my day around where I was going to be. And if I wasn't going to be near a food source, I would take food with me. I was that obsessed with it. It was an anxiety that I had because my sugar lows were so severe that I thought I was going to die if I didn't have glucose. So 2 things happened. Ian happened. Another customer of mine said, hunger's not an emergency, John. But it is. It's not. It just go with it and you'll come out the other side. And so I was learning all this. So I went on to a ketogenic diet, which helped a lot. But it still wasn't reducing my blood sugar enough. And actually the ferritin, we found out, is a complicator for that. But I went carnivore. And one of the fears of going on any diet is that you want to be hungry, because they say eat less, do more, and that's not your body's natural. Your body is going, no, I can't cope with this. I'm going to get inflamed. I'm going to save everything. So you can beat me as much as you like. I'm not going to lose any weight. On the carnivore diet, you're never hungry. So I went from eating every 2 hours to eating once a day. Now the quality of the meat is obviously also important. I grow my own food, so I'm very lucky, because all my beef is grass-fed and the omega-3, omega-6s and the proteins are absolutely spot on. So I went from eating twice every 2 hours to once a day. Revelation to me. I had a life again. I could actually go off and do things. I used to go, I got some land away from the farm. I would take, and it was disgusting when I look back the amount of food I could eat. I would take 3 packets of Maryland cookies in an outer, and 6 knickknacks, 6 packets of knickknacks. I'd just buy outers of stuff. I wouldn't buy individual, I'd buy the packets of them. And 2 litres of fizzy drink. And it didn't matter how long I was out in those fields, whether it was 2 hours or 6 hours. The only thing I ever came back with was empty packets, because I have no off button for carbohydrates. My body doesn't allow it. Now, I did a DNA test to find out where my heritage was. I'm very much where my ancestors lie, so Northern Hemisphere. So when my body eats anything with high fructose in it, or any high sugar, my body just turns it into fat. So my journey down this rabbit hole made me realize that the supermarket's 5 a day is a marketing term. Because if I said to you now, right, go out there and find me some food, you find me food that doesn't have fur or feathers on it, and I'll be very surprised. So we should be eating not 5 a day, but maybe 5 animals a day. There's no vegans in the room. There usually is. I usually get one. So I also read a book on vitamin D, and it made everything just fall into place, because we're animals. We've forgotten that we're animals, and we're subjected to the sun and the seasons, and our weight should fluctuate. So we actually go through, I've read, the book is incredible results from having a high vitamin D diet or something by a chap called Jeff Bowles, and he went out to 100,000 units a day. Now they only say to have like 800 to get away from rickets. Actually, it's way under what it should be, way under what it should be. I take about 20 to 30,000 a day as a supplement. So we go through a hibernation process. So you're all aware of SAD syndrome, seasonal adjustment disorder. That's our body's natural defense against the coming lean period, the hard times. So your body says, do less and eat more. We don't have the enthusiasm, we just want to stuff our faces. Well, what other animal does that? Bears do that. Bears do that. They stuff themselves, they get fat ready for the hibernation. We just don't quite go into that deep hibernation. So our body would naturally fluctuate. We wouldn't eat every day. We wouldn't eat every day. That's a normal thing to do. It's like our pets. I only feed my dogs 5 out of 7 days. They are not designed to be eating every single day. Fasting is so important for us. I'm saying that, I don't do it, but... I'm not carnivore anymore either. So, it's a life... Shh. I can hear. Lifestyle and mindset change was the most important thing for me. So when I used to look at fluorescent cake, I would think, how much of that can I get in? Now I look at it and think, that's toxic. And when we change our brain to looking at food and going, what will that nourish me? Or will that just send me into a glycemic high and then into an insulin low? That's what we need to actually think about food, not just how good it tastes. We've had this bad association with food where we celebrate with food. My mum used to meet me with a curly whirly from school, you know. Had a good day, yeah, off my tits for the rest of the day, you know, afternoon, oh, crash, and that's what I was doing all my life. Every single day, every 2 hours, I was going through a cycle of highs and lows. How my pancreas survived, I have no idea. So, I lost 5 stone in 6 months. I know, and all I did was change my diet. Obviously, I'm working all the time. It's very rare I sit down. And my brain started working again, which was absolutely incredible. I could actually remember people's names. So that was me as a fatty. Do you know my father?
No. It's like your father.
I do look like my father. You're absolutely right. That's what he looked like. Sad, isn't it? No, it is quite sad, actually, that I looked like that, and I didn't even think I was fat. Because I got to nearly 50, I was 47, I think, when this was taken. And I just thought, well, you know, you get a middle-aged spread, don't you? You know, this is what happens when you get older. Yeah. And I was always hungry. That was my thing. I was always hungry. I could eat and just eat. There, me looking very country. So yeah, so I went from, what was it, 100? You probably all work in pounds, don't you? I like kilos, but 18 stone 1 pound to 13 stone 9. And I could tie my laces again. It was incredible. I hadn't worn laced up shoes for ages. So this sent me on this journey. So if I've done this to myself, what about my cows? What am I feeding them? So I was feeding them a really not a high cereal diet, a cereal diet. We've never been really commercial. I thought they wouldn't go out and eat wheat necessarily in the fields. They wouldn't, although grass is actually wheat, but in the concentrated form, they wouldn't eat it. They wouldn't eat brewer's grains and all the other rubbish that I used to actually feed them. So I thought, right, they're going to come off it as well, which was probably the worst 5 months of my life, because I had, at the time, 50 dyspraxic, adolescent, the other words I used, I won't use today. They would not come into the parlour. I spent 5 months driving the cows into the parlour. So I used to just open the gate and they'd all come in until I took their drugs away. And I realised they were getting a dopamine high like I was getting a dopamine high. So when they used to come into the parlour before, they would constantly hit their heads against the metalwork to try and just drop a few more little nuts of cereals down. And I just thought that's what they did, because it's the same as them bunting their mothers for more milk. And they'd get, you know, all of that pain and effort was worth a couple of little nuggets of feed. Milking's almost silent now. They don't do that at all. But it took 5 months, and I had some cows coming up, Shannon in particular, would come up into the yard, look at me in the face and go, moo. Like, where's my bloody food? Where's my drugs? They were so addicted to them, and it took 5 months for them to get over it. So I knew I was doing the right thing, and I knew the pain that I'd been through, because I'd had a headache for about 2 months when I did the transition. So I knew that they were going through a transition too, and I just had to stick with it. So this is what we used to do. And we were getting paid 30 pence a litre when we actually, 32 pence a litre when we packed up our contract. My dad was getting the same in 1988. How many people, if you said to them, right, go back to your 1988 wages, oh, sorry, all the other costs have gone up as well. We've been told for years, get more efficient. Do it better. Get bigger, get more cows, get more efficient. Abuse the cows as much as you can to get more as you can, because we don't want to pay you any money for it. And one of the big problems, the MMB the Milk Marketing Board, was a great thing to do after the war, but it was also the worst thing they could ever do to farmers, because as Mark's just said, they took the customer away from the producer. So when people come to me, they're not just buying milk, they're buying a little bit of me. Charles, perfect example. You don't come and expect not to have an hour's talking to me, do you? You know, when people come to me, they're getting a daily or a weekly update about how things are on the farm. The farm's going well, the cows are milking well, the ground's too wet, I had a bad calving, lost a calf, da-da-da-da. So the perceived value of the food that you buy from me is completely different from picking a bottle from a shelf. You pick a bottle off a shelf, it's just a commodity. There's no emotional or visceral tie to that product. When you come and get my milk, I mean, I have a lot of people just come into the parlour and watch the milking, and they actually take the milk that they've seen produced on that morning. How many people can actually say that they actually see where their food's coming from firsthand, be within a couple of feet, actually be part of it? But very few people can do that. And it's magical for people. I do every day. I don't see the magic because bloody cows again. But it's for them, it's just absolutely magical. And you see the wide eyes and they open mouth and they ask question after question after question because they just think it's milk up until that point. They don't see all the processes you have to go through, and it's magical for them. But it wasn't. 60, 70, 80 years ago, that was the norm, you know. My grandmother, Gleed, would put churns on a trolley, she'd take it up the village. And she would talk to all of the mothers that were coming out who were scooping their daily quart of milk. Had a daily update. That's a low carbon footprint, isn't it? My milk used to go to numerous places, Stonehouse, Hatfield Peveril in London, get bottled, taken somewhere else, used to go to Birmingham to be into chocolate. You're transporting water. It's 90% water. What the hell are we doing? And we want to have a low carbon footprint? Buy it from your bloody farmer down the road. There's your low carbon footprint. So this is what we used to be. So we were a milking operation. So we would buy cows that were just calved, milk them, we'd get them pregnant again, they'd have a calf, we'd sell the calf. So we didn't have any progeny coming through to be milked. We just literally were what we call a flying herd. So we just brought cows in, milked them, and then we sold milk. And we were very good at it. And then I went and got it all wrong. So we went from an open, basically a flying herd to a closed herd. So everything now we produce on the farm. So every single calf that we're going to put into beef or into dairy, we're born on the farm, apart from one I bought the other day. We don't feed any cereals. We milk once a day. Now that was a big turning point for me. So most farms milk twice a day. When you're on a grass-only system, and the grass isn't very good, which we had a few years ago, the cow's milk drops. We're also feeding calves. And I had a cold, it was December, and Sarah said, I'm going to set the parlour up for milking this afternoon. I said, do you know what, just don't bother. I'm not going to do it this afternoon. She went, well, why? I said, I'll just milk them tomorrow. They're not giving enough milk. And I don't know, the mothers in the room that feel like this, but when you express milk, it's the same as having a pee. If your bladder's not full, it's actually really quite hard you've got to think about which hormone to release to make it work. My cows gave more milking once a day than they did milking twice a day. And it was just, again, a revelation for me. And the cows are so much happier just being milked once a day. I'm not very vigorous in the times I milk. I tend to leave it a little bit, because Charles will come and I'll talk to him for 2 hours and they're like, shit, I milked the cows. So they're not stood at the gate waiting for me. They're very relaxed. My cows are very relaxed about everything in life in general. You can just walk amongst them, touch them. There's a few that don't like it, but most of them do. Because I want them to be that way. It's all low pressure. It's all about their health. So yeah, we've gone from producing 250,000 litres a year to 55. Again, that shows itself in the cow's health. I don't have any digestive issues. I've got a little bit of ringworm at the moment, but I think everybody has. We don't get bad feet either. Feet is a thing. You used to have like quite a lot of bad feet because where you're feeding cereals, their feet are overgrowing. I probably trim two cows a month now. Right? It would be all of them twice a year before. And I sell everything at the farm gate. Again, a revelation. I used to have one customer before, and now I've got 300, 400, sometimes 500 people that will come to the farm, or I send off directly. And it's a completely different reward system. I was just looking at the check that was coming in at the end of the month before. Now I get people saying, you can't give up what you're doing because I'm going to be ill if you stop. That's a completely different reward system. But Mark was saying, and quite rightly so, we don't do it for the money. Did it for the money, you'd find something far easier to do. But that's wrong, because I can save people surgery. I could save the NHS billions overnight easily if people just came to local farms like us and just ate proper food. They won't allow that, and they won't, not just liking it, they won't allow it at the moment. Read this February. How about this? So the National Preparedness Commission's report, February 25. Leave millions without food. This is a government organisation saying we're heading for a crisis. Not just Mark saying it. They're saying it. So this isn't just us conspiracy theorists, this is the government telling you this as well. Oh yeah, rationing. This is one of the 7 points that came out. I'm thinking about rationing. God, that's going to go down well, isn't it? So I'm not going to read it. Anything that I thought was, I did that. That's a really good little thing. So they're saying we should boost domestic production, what we've all been talking about in this room today. Reduce our dependence on imports. I like that. Strengthen supply chains. What's Mark doing? Food chains. That's what you're doing, isn't it? This is exactly what we're talking about. And they're telling us we need to do it with this hand, and yet the other hand they're trying to destroy us all. Precisely. Household business should be encouraged to build their own resilience. Again, what we're talking about today. So they're talking about it. They know this needs to happen, but they're also actively trying to destroy it. I think that's the last time I've done that, by the way. They're talking about investing in research and innovation, regenerative agriculture, sustainable food production, all great catchwords that we will have to make happen because they won't. So this is one of my things, food security. Where did I get to? Beast from the East. This was my big wake-up call. So do you all remember the Beast from the East? Yeah, minus 14 at our farm. Everything. I had pipes frozen within buildings, which we've never had before. And it was actually my day off. It must have been a Wednesday, my morning off milking, sorry. And the girl in the dairy phoned me and said, the milk pump won't work. So I went out there, bloody odd. Anyway, the milk pump was frozen. So got that off. And I saw, oh, by the way, there's no water. There's no water? Of course there's always water. And I spent the rest of that day, so 5:30 in the morning, right through to 1:30 the next day, getting water to cattle. Just trying to unfreeze stuff. It was horrendous. Anyway, no milk in our village. We're just this side of Swindon. And we put a shout out because we had the license to be able to sell raw milk. So we said, we've got milk. If anybody wants milk, meat, eggs. And they came from miles. It was just like a adventure for these people. They were loving it. They were having snowball fights on the way. They bring their own jugs. We sold out. 2 or 3 days we sold out. And afterwards, when they all went back to their old lives, which was a little bit annoying, I sat down with Sarah and I just said, that has scared me shitless. She said, what do you mean? Let's put us on the map. We've got a presence now. I said, what's going to happen? I'm old enough to remember 1982 snowdrift, where we didn't go to school for 7-10 days. I can't remember what it was. What happens to these people when they don't, if something happens to us, like an EMF or, I don't know, fuel shortage, whatever it may be, where are you going to get your food from? And I realised I was very vulnerable. That was a big wake-up call for me. And I had one guy come out, and I thought about this, and I've put a lot of things in place, which I'll go through. What do I say next? So next weather event. And so the just-in-time system works brilliant when the lorries are rolling, and the carbon's still cheap. Cheapish. When it all goes wrong, where are they going to go? And I had one guy come out, and he had a wife and 2 kids. The kids weren't there. And I said to him, right, where are you going to go when she says that these 2 kids haven't fed for a week? Don't come back without any food. I said, where are you going to go? He went, well, flippantly, he said, I'm going to come to you. I said, piss off, because I've got 60 people ahead of you today, so you ain't having it, so where are you going to go? And I really pushed him, because I thought I need to know what he's going to do. And there's no answer. There is literally nowhere to go for your food if it's not in the supermarket. That's scary, because I've got 110 animals walking around that are living, walking food, producing food, and this guy's going to come to me and say, I want some meat or some milk. And I'm going, no, you're not having it. He goes, no, I'm going to have it. I go, no, you're not going to have it. Well, who's going to win that fight? If I've got 50 people behind him also wanting to have a piece of what I've got. And it really it was a real wake-up call for me. Toilet rolls. People are fighting over fucking toilet rolls. Look what they were doing. That was mental. They weren't hungry. It wasn't even a symptom of the fake thing that they said they were going to have anyway. What happens when people get hungry? And if you've got stored food, make sure you don't tell anybody you've got stored food. Food security is your issue. It's your responsibility. Absolutely nobody else is responsible for you. If you're hungry, that's your fault for not being prepared. And I've been telling people for years now, get a stock, whatever it may be, something to get you by. Obviously, I'm okay, I've got cows, I can just drink raw milk all day, so I'm all right. But if you don't have access to that, then, and I'm seeing your faces, and it's just like, This should scare the shit out of you. Absolutely scare you. Mark's saying there's a food shortage coming. I'm saying there's a coming. We're the people that are producing it. It's at some point, if something doesn't change, you're going to be without food. Well, think about where you're going to get that food. Because that's what they want.
Jesus, how long have you got? We can spend 2 days on it.
They're making it happen. They're reducing the farm. The farmers are disappearing. Mark just said, I mean, in my village, there was 13 dairy farmers when I was a kid. There's now just me. Well, if I pack up and that same happens, I've got, between the 2 towns I'm in, 2 towns either side of me, I'm right in the middle. At the moment, there's 4 milk producers. 2 of those are going out this year. That leaves 2 of us. And I can only produce enough. Well, I can't even produce enough for my village. The other one is a very commercial farm. You probably wouldn't want to drink his milk anyway. Where are you going to get your food from?
If I asked the government, can you tell me what they would say?
They're going to say it's not true and we're doing everything we can to make sure that your food security is sorted out for you. I think we need to sort it out ourselves. I think we got to the stage where they aren't going to help you. If you have any reliance on the government, I can't say that, Mark. You're in trouble if you're going to rely on the government. So my answer to the situation, as Mark has said, is if you can't find a local farm producing what you want, make it happen. Or find a farmer who's close to you with some land and say, we want to do this, can we have a bit of land? Because every single farmer feels isolated. We are pushed. We've got 9 people watching us or 10 people watching us with clipboards. Everybody is after us. That's how it feels. And you, the public, think that we're destroying the planet. You, the public, don't want to pay for your food. You, the public, think that we shouldn't get special inheritance tax laws because we're all loaded. I worked out 2 years ago what I earned an hour, and it was £1.86. So if any of you want to challenge me on my commitment or farmers' commitment to what they do, start putting yourself in their shoes. So why should we produce food for you? If we get so much abuse, especially from the government. So I'm saying, find a farm, talk to them. What Mark just said was exactly what I was going to say. Say to your local farmer, what can we do to help you? What do you need to produce food for us? It's not just us fighting for what we do, we're fighting for your food. Your fight, our fight is the same fight because it's your survival and it's your access to food. So don't think on any level that it's our fight. Because if it's just our fight, you're going to go hungry. That's Murphy, he is lovely. It's been mentioned twice today, guard the gate. Find your farmer and say, if anything goes wrong, we're here. Get a WhatsApp group with your local farmer and say, if you get challenged and they want to come kill your chickens or your cows or you want to inject them with mRNA, say no, we'll come, we'll protect it. Because that's a show of force. And he needs to know he's not isolated. Zombies, oh my God, the zombies. So I saw years ago, Louis Theroux did a documentary on preppers in the deep south, out of Oklahoma or something like that. And this guy did you see it? It was an amazing program. And these guys had like vast dungeons full of food and guns, and it was really impressive. And the way he was making it sound was that the zombie, when the zombies come over the hill, we're going to be prepared for them. And it was highlighted that he was like a complete lunatic. But actually, they're walking among us now. You see them driving cars with masks on. These people are here. I didn't realise what he meant. They're here now. They are among us. We call them NPCs, non-player characters. They are drones. They run around. They are going to be our problem, and they are here now. And I was annoyed with myself. I didn't necessarily see what he meant 20, 30 years ago, whenever it came out. So I've put things in place on my farm. If it does go to shit, martial law, whatever, don't come to my farm because you will be met with a lot of force. I've got a lot of people in place that have skills that you don't want to face. A couple of my customers are ex-army. You'll appreciate this. So he basically said, if you're in that situation, you need to make a very big statement very early on. Don't F with us because you'll be met with lethal force. I've put things in place to make that.
To stop shooting.
Well, they are trying to stop shooting, absolutely, absolutely. So there are other ways. Don't you worry about me. There are other ways of stopping people. So we've mapped my farm. We know where all the vantage points are. We know where the weak points are. We know we're going to get water. I have, if it does go to shit, I have people that will move in and they will protect. I will give them food. They will protect my cows and me. That's how far you need to start thinking ahead. Get guinea fowl. They are so noisy. Oh my God, if anybody comes on the farm, we know about it. The average age of the farm is over 60. Well, what do most people do when they get to 60? They're looking to retire. Any industry that the average age of the person is over 35 is going backwards. We need young people in agriculture. You made a very good comment. The faces I'm seeing here, I wouldn't want to make an average, but they're not teenagers, you know? And it's a scary thought. We've only got maybe 15, 20 years before we are rendered useless. Who is going to produce your food? We need schools. I was in a schools career, one of those things that fair, thank you. And the agricultural college was there, and they were saying, "Oh, you're not doing very well at your grades. Maybe you could come and do farming." No, you're doing really good at your grades. Come and do farming. We need innovative, futuristic thinking people, not people who want to drive a fork or a tractor. We need people that actually are thinking about the future, regenerative, whatever it may be, like Mark was 40 years ago. So, and then again, look, 15% of the vegetable farmers are under 45. That's really scary. Where there obviously is a challenge, we never know what we're going to get, and we're in cycles that we have to try to allow for. So my Narnia is around this area. Let's say there's 5,000-6,000 people here. Let's have 5 or 6 farms around the outside. The idea of a 15-minute city for food appeals to me. Not their version of 15-minute cities. I want you to be able to drive or walk 10-15 minutes to get milk, meat, eggs, cheese, whatever you need, not have to get in a car. Because that's food security, because if the fuel runs out, you can walk down the farm and get it. You don't have any worry. Our grandparents didn't worry about food. They had larders. The irony of having a huge house now with this massive kitchen and no larder to store any food is just, and people that don't even know how to cook. It's ridiculous. So if you can't get food, you can't find a food, speak to a farmer, get some land, do it yourself. Then you'll have a real appreciation of how hard it is to do. That's a whole list of places I got my information from, and again, I can give that to Kay to distribute. So the future of farming is very important. You can't see it. Can you see that?
There we are. Excellent, John. Thank you very much indeed. That's fantastic. And a real progression from thinking back to where we started this morning with Sandy, going back to the days of Morris Strong and Rockefeller building the United Nations building, to how to protect your own food supply. I mean, John brings us to the reality that is absolutely there if people do not do what needs to be done. And I think also the other thing that I'd really like to take out from that is putting what you describe as the emotion back into that engagement, that transaction with the farmer. And that is an absolutely critical part of it that we mustn't overlook. Now, we have got a little bit of time, so what we'll do is I'll ask Mark to come up as well, and we'll have quick fire sort of 10-minute question session, if that's okay, and then do 30 minutes for tea. Does that sound right? Okay, good. Right.
I asked our local farmer who they run a farm shop, we shop there once a week. They sell their own milk, but it's not raw. I asked her why it wasn't raw, and she said they've got tuberculosis. Is that an insurmountable problem?
It's a difficult one. TB is a very emotive subject for farmers because the testing is not particularly, Roger can stand up and join in with this if you like, it's not particularly accurate. We've had quite a few discussions about this, Roger and I, and if you've got TB on your farm, you don't want it, you want to get rid of those cows. But reality is, and again, don't quote me on this, this is my view and what research I've done, the genome you need to catch respiratory TB is not caught from milk. The only way you could get it from milk is if there was lesions on the teat. Now, for a cow to get lesions on the teat, she is riddled with TB, and she would be taken by the test already. So the chances of catching TB from milk is virtually zero. But they're running on science, and they do not like the thought, that's not working, is it? They do not like the thought of risk. I have it with raw milk. If you put salmonella in healthy raw milk, the active biological components of that will outcompete the salmonella and kill it. But there's a chance you might catch salmonella. Well, if you're drinking that raw milk, you've probably already got a massively good immune system anyway, and so you're probably not going to catch it. But they won't ever allow that to happen. So TB is an issue. It is an issue, and I don't know, I'll be honest with you, I don't know the answer. Roger's going to have an opinion on this.
We were looking to put some cows on the farm last year, and we've got badgers on the farm.
Yeah.
So badgers, it's well documented, are an issue at spreading TB. However, badgers are also amazingly territorial. So we had the badgers tested to see if they had TB. Badgers didn't have TB, so the best thing we could do is leave them on the farm. Because then they can't, no one else is going to come into that area and spread TB.
I'm slightly going to challenge you on that, because that's where it went wrong. Where we stopped controlling the numbers of badgers.
Oh no, I agree.
No. But so if you had healthy badgers, that was what everybody said.
Yeah.
You leave them there because they'll keep the bad ones away. What happened? The numbers exploded so much. So the natural order for an ill badger is to go into a no man's land and die. That's what they would do. So you're ill, get out, and they would go off and die. It's like the greater good. But what was happening, these ill badgers were going straight into another territory, which was fiercely defended by the boars. And I've seen badgers fight, and it's quite a vicious. They do like lock on mouths. So that ill badger didn't have a chance against the healthy badger, but he inoculated the other one with TB. And so our TB that we get in my area is the Stroud Valley, and it comes. You can see it tracks all the way up. And we've had issues in the past where the people that are on the badger, the friends list, if you like, for badgers, they were trapping badgers and taking them to other areas. So we were having outbreaks in Lincolnshire from Devon badgers. And they were like, how is this even happening? This is like abnormal. And because it's a different genome, you could track it.
Yellow fever.
I don't know about yellow fever. And so we are, humans have taken the natural order away from things. So we got rid of the wolves. We got rid of all the things that we used to take care of the vermin. So it's our fault, and we need to manage those numbers. We let badgers, by some idiots badger baiting and getting sport from it, we allowed and ended being protected. They got more rights than humans, I think, isn't it? I think they actually have more rights than humans. So we've allowed that. TB is a population disease. The bigger the populations, it's South Africa, shanty towns. You know, it's rife in shanty towns because everybody's living on top of each other. You don't get it in extensive populations. So it's our fault. We need to look after them. So we've taken steps. We've reduced the population in our area by 70%, and we have seen a massive increase in the health of the herds. TB breakdowns don't last 18, 24 months now. They last 8, 9 months. It's a completely different scene now because we've taken some control of it. So if you've got healthy badgers and you've got nobody else on your doorstep, absolutely great. Keep them. They're what you need. But if you've got bad ones next door, you're going to get it.
I mean, TB is a disease of a poor immunity. So as John was saying, you know, when you treat the animals right, the immunity level is high. And that's why HIV was a big problem in Africa. They weren't killed by HIV, they were killed by the fact that a lot of them had TB that was dormant, and when their immune system dropped, they then died from TB. So TB is a problem of low immunity. It's indicative of the system that's not allowing immunity to be at its proper defensive level.
That's a better answer.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. Years ago in my travels, I was cycling through Pakistan, and I met a doctor who was one of the world experts in treating TB because he worked with the Afghan refugees up in the mountains. But what he told me is TB is very easy to treat because they cannot survive in a low oxygen environment.
Right.
The other thing I have to say is, back in the early 2000s, they were talking about culling badgers in Wales, and I started looking into it and found there's a company near Bristol that actually pulverise and powders the volcanic rock, and they used to do soil testing of farms and apply, because they found that very often they're deficient in trace elements. And by putting the powder back on the land, they found every farm they treated never had a case of TB.
Right. Yeah. I believe that.
Just a couple of things to look up anyway.
Is it called zeolite?
No, it's not zeolite. It's the powdered volcanic rock. It is.
I think that's what zeolite is.
I don't know what zeolite is. I think
I
it's.
think the other side of the issue with lots of badgers is that lots of wild birds, especially like land-laying birds, have disappeared as a result of the population of badgers. Hares, where we live now, are nearly non-existent. Badgers have had them all out, pheasants, pigeons, everything that they have the opportunity to have. They have
They are vicious killers. Absolutely vicious. They rip
the biggest
hen
carnivores
houses
in the country,
apart.
aren't they? So it's like,
They're huge.
I'd like to ask you all about PV panels in the context of what we've been talking about with climate change, as it were. Do you think would you cash out money for PV panels, especially and in particular in relation to you generally have to have a what do you call it when you battery. Battery, but also you've got to do it with I can't remember the name of it, where the if you with good energy, they have to have it sort of digitally inserted into you.
Smart meter.
Smart meter, yeah, that word, yeah. So, I mean, do you feel like they're a good bargain, a good investment, or what?
Do you mean for example, to have your own power supply? Is that what you're really meaning, or
I'm
not?
talking about whether PV panels are worth having in terms of an energy source for powering your business, but also in relation to putting it back into the network, and also, because in some ways there's a sceptical side to all this today in terms of the carbon dioxide issue.
Yeah.
Well, I'm only good with tits, I'm afraid. I'm going to pass that one on.
So the question's about whether I think I'm right. The question about is if you are a farmer, would you consider installing solar panels on your farm?
For the public as well, like me, for example.
Oh, I see. All right, okay. Or if you were to do it, I think there are two things. One is whether you're off grid or on the grid, and if you're off the grid, you have access to that energy and no one else does.
Actually, one of the reasons I'm asking the question is because of the whole thing with energy supplies going up, the prices, all that. The amount of people, sort of in my local area, who are having panels installed is really gone, exponentially higher. So there's something going on in terms of the algorithm and people thinking they want to, kind of join. Get connected with the grid.
Yeah.
But also, the way you're talking about the way governments clamp down and control us, and in a way, having a smart meter is a form of control.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if there's a downside to all that.
I think my opinion is that there absolutely is. If you go into a scheme where you're connected to the grid, I think the first thing to point out is that you have no control over the energy that you're producing. So in the doomsday scenario where people are banging your door down wanting food or whatever it is, and the grid gets shut down, you get shut down too, even if you're producing electricity at the time. It's not being stored on site, so you have no power over it. Sorry, pardon the pun. But otherwise, if it's off grid, then you do. But clearly, you can't do anything with the surplus, and you can't do anything if you're underproducing. So there's sort of, there are limitations. But I would say, from a totally unqualified position, obviously, but the way it's going and the way the National Energy System Operator is telling people to use energy, which is to conform with the so-called renewable systems and therefore only to use energy at that time, don't do it. Don't sign up to any sort of scheme that's going to make you dependent upon them. Whereas if you are able to, particularly if you're in a more remote location and you're able to establish some kind of off-grid capability, why on earth not? Unless you're, it depends how far you're going to take that. If we're going to go back to the, mining coal is bad, mining lithium is good. It just depends how far you go along the philosophical thing.
Have a look at the Woodlander initiative, because Simon's done a lot of research on that, because he's gone totally off-grid, but then he produces his own food, he's got his own chickens and turkeys, his own water supply. And he does rely a lot on solar.
Well, I'll tell you what.
But it's only for his unit.
If you perhaps you guys can have a chat. It's a really interesting talking point, perhaps for during the tea break. Just go to sorry.
Yeah, just to you, right, you mentioned about the electroculture, which I've done with myself. Do you have any plans? Because there's always whether north, south, pole, whichever way you feel the antennae. So
Talk to me afterwards. It's rocket science. It's proper rocket science.
There's a question about electroculture, which Mark is very happy to talk to people about. Actually, if he positions himself here during the tea break, anyone who wants to know about that can come to him. One thing I think, sorry, just to go back to John talking about raw milk. I don't know how much anyone knew about raw milk and about the push to prevent it via means of scaremongering, but it is illegal in Scotland already and has been for some time to buy and sell raw milk. It's just an indication of how vulnerable these systems and indeed people like John actually are. We'll just have one more question and then we'll do tea.
Do you do a first come first served basis?
At the moment, we're just taking orders only because we're a bit short on yield, but later on in the year it should be okay just to turn up. You're quite close. You look geographically quite close.
That's worth the trip.
Yeah, we have quite a few come from Glasgow.
Great. Okay, we'll do 30 minutes and then we'll hand over to Richard for rounding up the day. So tea and whatnot outside, whatever. Mark will be here to talk about electroculture, and then at 5:30 we'll start again. Okay.